you see people over and over again after every big race they do have these what they consider the Ironman blues or the race blues because now their process is over. So you have to find a different one. That's where growth and figuring things out about yourself, that's where it lies. And so why do you I don't understand why we have this like society now that it's like you want it all now and you want it to be over. Like you're robbing yourself of the joy of what you get and what you get from this day-to-day dedication to a process, whether it be, mastering this or diet or training or just trying to be consistent or reading 30 minutes a day. Like that's where the growth and the greatness comes from, not from it being over.
You there, Coach?
Hey, happy Thursday. It's February 5th. Man, February 5th, 2020. Welcome aboard. Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 345.
345.
345. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, if it's your first time, we appreciate you joining us. We cover it all. We cover all things triathlon. We cover all things life. We cover how they intersect. Both Mike and I are coaches and athletes. I'm Coach Robbie. That's Mike. We've been doing this for quite a while. And we started this podcast really in kind of a selfish manner, just for ourselves. As I was living in Kansas City and Mike was in Nashville, and we kind of missed the conversations that we would have at coffee shops or on the phone or really anywhere, just kind of every week about just life and triathlon and the analogies we can make between both and how similar they are, the good and the bad, and the things we can take away from them. So we got rolling, and here we are, 345 podcasts deep, twice a week. We occasionally have people on to interview, but for the most part, it is just a relaxed, conversational style format with no sponsors, no ads, no gimmicks, just talk. And if you can take anything from this podcast, we hope you can just take that we want you to be healthy, we want you to be happy, and take some of the cues that we might give or the experiences that we've had, the obstacles that we've had to go through on our own. And if you can apply that to any part of your life, any part of your training, any part of your racing, and make it your own and have it be a positive experience, then we will consider this podcast a win.
Yeah, man.
Stop dang.
Right
I've been prepping all morning to like let a few like mans roll in on my own, and I've been getting kind of hounded a little bit because I say again a lot, and I caught myself doing that frequently this morning as I was doing a slew of swim analysis this morning, and I kept catching myself being like, and again, we got to do this, but
Yeah.
again, it's just a reminder that, sometimes you got to get a point across, and I have a lot of things to say, and sometimes I don't say I'm the best. And so I might rewind a little bit in my own mind, try to come back out and make things a little more clear and concise so you can consume it. And I'm often reminded of this as obviously you know that I'm married and have athletes and all kinds of things, and how differently we all absorb what someone says. And you could be in the room with like 5 different people, 20 different people, whatever it is, and you might say something or tell a story or try to get a point across, and they're all going to hear 20 different things, based on their own reality, based on their own experiences, based on what matters most to them. So I try to do my best, you and I both do, is to explain things in a lot of different ways. We do use a lot of analogies, especially me. But hey, that's the way we learn. It's a way for us to relate to a topic and let it roll. So that's it. That's my intro. I'm ready to go today, even though it is gloomy and nasty here in Chattanooga. And I think it is in Nashville as well. It's just been a nasty few days. It's been very gloomy, very
brutal.
West Coast Seattle-like, and it's not my favorite.
Yeah, and speaking of absorb, I was curious how you absorbed the State of the Union last night. I'm kidding.
I did. I'll be totally honest with you, man. This is how. We stay away from politics and religion. We vaguely dive into diet, which is like the 3 cultish hierarchies we have in America, that are, you're just like brewing for a fight if you cover any of those.
Mm-hmm.
I stay away from the conversations on a lot of those because I'll be honest with you, I really don't know that much about politics, and I don't want to, because most of it just doesn't really. There's enough going on, and I don't want to get some big like argument with somebody, and it's just I didn't even know it was happening. No lie, I had no idea it even was occurring. And I opened up my Twitter feed this morning. I've taken Facebook off my phone. I've only used it like when I have access to my laptop. So I've kind of gotten away from some of the chit chat on that because I find it just kind of negative for the most part. I'll just occasionally check my notifications if it's something from like, we have a run camp coming up tomorrow. We have notifications in there, so I'll check that. But other than like the scrolling thing, I'm out of it. I'm done.
Mm.
And so I had no idea what was going on. We got home yesterday and went out to eat with Hayden because we'll be dropping him off at the in-laws tomorrow. And then we did a few things around the house, played a little bit of football upstairs, played a little bit of basketball, did bath time, read some books, went to bed. So
Good
yeah,
for
I
you, man.
I watched absolutely zero of that address.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk about that. I just was
Thank
kind of
God,
it was
because
kind of a joke.
we're gonna.
Uh,
I
as
know.
my friend, not my friend, my favorite author, William Zinsser,
It's your
who,
friend. You're my friend, my buddy.
my my 95-year-old friend William Zinsser says, you know, do what you right for yourself, and that's kind of how we live this podcast. You mentioned that we did it because we just wanted to. But anyway, I wanted to talk quick about something to see if it uh,
Ooh,
kicks something off for you.
topic Thursday for Mike Charlie. Let it rip, buddy.
Because I am here to tell you that well, we know that my dad recently passed away, and I'm, I don't want to say desperately trying to, move on, but it's been tough. It's been a weird one. So I've let since he went into hospice, I've let my fitness slide. I've let my diet slide, or I think in general, I'm saying right now. I've been on it a little bit, but the last couple weeks I've been trying to get back into focused, and um, I've been a little bit sore, weak, tired, and frankly a little bit depressed. And as you said, the gloominess out there is a little tricky these days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a little run yesterday. I've been running a little bit, and I've had some decent runs and some really clunkers. Yesterday I just wanted to kind of go out and glide for like 3 miles or something like that. Nothing too hard, just kind of see what I have, where I'm at, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no looking at the watch, whatever. And but run it with a little bit of pace just to see if I could hold. Not nothing crazy, but I ran it at about a 9:30 pace,
Okay.
and I got to tell you, man, it wasn't that easy for me. And it was the thought that I kept had. I'm suffering a bit, and the pain was there, but it was a different kind of pain. And I was thinking about. I don't know. I'm far from hopeless, but it's kind of scary a little bit what I've been going through. So I, what kept crossing my mind was just, I'm not that far removed from doing an Ironman, last fall. And actually last run camp, I was in really good shape. And then it's just how quickly it goes away, and how, it really dawned on me yesterday that we can't take this shit for granted. I'm getting a little bit older or whatever. And, and I just think that we have to remember how good this feels, how good being in shape feels. And uh, my dad, for example, wasn't really the most active guy, and I think a lot of his struggles towards the end may have been part of that. And
Mm-hmm.
and it really hit me, man. It was kind of emotional because I'm like, man, you let this slide one too many times, and you might not get it back. So I think that's kind of where I'm at, is just like, just we can't really take this for granted as we're going along. And I think it's always a good reminder to be like, even though you're struggling and maybe in some pain, and it's hard sometimes, it gets way harder if you're not, it's a different kind of hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You
So,
know, well, first off, I appreciate you opening up about that. I know that a lot of people can relate to just being down in the dumps, being depressed, being anxious, not feeling good, and just generally having to navigate this sometimes, the impossible feeling sometimes of just kind of, navigating life and all the things that come up. And, I'm grateful to work with, a lot of athletes that, know that I have an open door policy and can share, so many things, with me. And I know a lot of them share the same things with you. And I think, a lot of stuff came to my mind on a direction we could go. And so I'll just kind of throw out a couple of those things that I really took from what you just said. And the first one was that's why intention is so important. We always have these expectations and these thoughts because we'd be naive to think that we just don't carry our past fitness or our past version of our athletic self with us when we go train. That's just naive. Like it's not a bad thing either. But I think running with those or biking with those or swimming with those thoughts as a comparison is a great way to have to be the thief of joy. And that's why I think intention is so great because intention is the root behind your effort. And if you can just take your effort and your focus and take the good from that and leave the rest, that again opens up to the comparison for numbers and the races and the PRs and whatever it might be. That's when things start to get tricky, and that's when things can play into more of a negative thought process or critical thinking or not meeting expectations. And if you're already in a place where you're struggling, you're just going to feed that demon. You know what I mean? You're just going to continue to
Mm.
feed, and it's going to make it seem right. And another one is how different we all become when we have these huge life events. There was it's been like probably 10 years or so as I was reading, and I'm gonna totally butcher this, and I'm sure it's not right, but you'll get the gist of it. I was reading this study on the amount of time it took a person to basically have, like, if you get like a really giant adrenaline rush in your body, like something happens, like we've all had these gigantic adrenaline rush, whether it was like a near miss with like a car accident or something happened and we got this giant adrenaline dump in our body. And it was a study based on saying how long it took your body to have all of that adrenaline dissipate and thin out to where it was no longer in your system.
Mm.
And I always tend to think about stress that way as well. And like you can look at loss and death and the loss of jobs or divorce or injuries or kids getting any kind of a life event is a huge amount of stress that's being dumped into your system. Cortisol levels go up. Your body changes. It doesn't have to change for good. I heard you say that as well. It's like, I'm afraid it's going to stay this way, or like it's not going to get back. But I think we have to be kind to ourselves and recognize how much stress. And this goes with everything. It can be, we're using you as an example because of the loss of your dad, and it's the whole ordeal, the whole loss, the death, the funeral, the travel, the talking to it's all stress. And and it's not like you get a break. Like you can have better times within these events that happen in your life, that you can feel like you're navigating it better, but it's incredibly stressful. And what that does to your body, we could dive into free radicals and all the things that happen like physiologically to your body when these things are occurring. But the truth is, and this again, this is like the phrase that most people hate to hear, is it takes time. It
Yeah.
took time for your body to basically dam up this surplus of stress and sadness and grief and all these things. It's the same thing as, it'll take a person 20, not 20, 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 months to put on a specific amount of weight. And then you want to drop it in 2 weeks. And if you don't see it, being removed as quick as you want it to remove, then you're not making headway, and you're just going to never be that same whatever. I'm never going to be that same athlete. I'm never going to be that same way. It's because we forget how long it took us to get to where we are, and we expect it. We expect to basically, get back to where we wanted to always faster. And I think when it comes to fitness and then when it comes to expressing that in our training and our racing and just our day-to-day life with what we're trying to, and what we're intending to do, we have to remember that you said it was kind of, it was very enlightening, as your friend and as, your, the co-host with you, is like you said, I'm not that far removed from just doing an Ironman. We're talking September, right? So you consider yourself, oh, I'm not that far removed from being in Ironman shape, but the same breath, you're comparing yourself, or you're not basically, you are not, I don't think, taking into account the fact that it was just a month ago that you also lost your dad. and like, but the first thing is we revert back to our best, oh, well, just in Ironman shape. Oh, and then again, I just went through this huge loss, and now I'm this different person. And which is, I think, again, is one of the things that we have a hard time wrapping our brain around it. And, the podcast we've done about being late to your own party is that you're now different. You are a different Mike Torelli than you were when you did Wisconsin. You're not going to race the same way. You're not going to train the same way. Your thoughts are going to be different. You're going to think of things differently. I know you already have. You and I have had discussions about this already, about about the way you see things, and about this it changes the fabric of who you are. And but we have those past thoughts and those memories of racing and fitness, and I think those are positive if we can hold on to those in a manner of, you can do this. You're not far removed from it, but you don't have to be it tomorrow. And I think that that's a very difficult thing for us to do. And I think getting there has to come through with kind of a piece, a piece of understanding of where you are, and that and a belief that I can get back there. It's not going to be today, and it's not going to be tomorrow. But to be honest with you, like, that's okay. And why would you want it that way? Because then it would mean all your hard work, everything would come back in an instant. You would just get it back. But that's what makes hard work and motivation and commitment and consistency and buying into the process. That's what makes those journeys so valuable, is because what we get from those, not because we woke up the next day and just got it. I had a conversation with another athlete that's coming to our run camp, and he was kind of joking about he was going to be back of the pack, or whatever. And I told him, I said, listen, I love athletes like you because you work your ass off. And I get, I don't want to say I get more energized by people like that, but it's probably true. I do. I love working with people who work hard, who are motivated, who stick with it, who get after it. And if you see somebody, it's like, I've only ran twice in the last like 2 months, and then I went out and knocked out this half marathon PR. I'm like, congrats, way for totally underachieving.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's like I love the grind. I love people who work hard, and because it's about working hard. It's about figuring those things out. It's about committing. And so, that's, I guess, my message to you is, your best friend and co-host and whatever else, is that you got to understand that. I think just be kind to ourselves, but then realize that, you're different. And I think with that comes a level of understanding, but then most importantly, a level of hopefully acceptance that you like. I remember going way back to when I got sober. I remember the very first time that I got back in the pool, like, and I thought I was going to be, and I think I've mentioned this on multiple podcasts before, like how much I used to struggle with the fact that I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to dig deep enough in my training or in racing to take myself to sometimes that dark place of pain, because I no longer had that pain. You remember those conversations? Like and I haven't
Yeah,
had
I
that thought or
totally do.
feeling. Yeah, it was like, because when I used to race before I got sober, I was dealing with all these demons and this trauma in an unhealthy way, that I would go to these like deep, dark places of pain that hurt me, because to me it was a relief. Like the physical relief I was getting from the training was actually a relief of the emotional and mental pain that I had. And then once I got sober and I started training and racing again, like I kept trying to make myself go back there, but it's like you can't make yourself have pain. And so I struggle with that. But that's, again, it's just a different part of who I am now. And to be honest with you, I think I still have to navigate it in a different way, but it's not a bad thing. It's just different.
Yeah. And I don't mean to, yeah, I agree with that 100%. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I guess I've just lately been marveling at how quickly it goes away, and how, for me anyway, it's not getting any easier. And of course, that seems like an obvious statement, but as you get older and things like that, I just, people have always asked about why I keep doing Ironman. I've done 7 years in a row since I started, and this is the first year that I've been, really thinking about not doing one and everything, and I'm starting to question that. But I'm glad you brought up the part about comparison again, because that's been the other thing that's been on my mind, how often we compare ourselves to other people, or how easy it is to do that. And when you get in places like this, you sort of start naturally trying to look outside And against all my true beliefs, I have been looking outside for motivation. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but it can be kind of weird because, I think about this all the time. We see people, whether it's at work or out at the, you know, social events or whatever, and we see people, and there's always people that are always just seem like they're really in a great spot and a great mood, and got their act together and everything like that. But we don't see them, the other 22, 3 hours of the day, or that most of the time. So we don't see their real life. So I think, in social media and everything that we see online, that's where I get really twisted with it, because it's so easy for people that are kind of in a funk or whatever. Even I've been like trying to think about how can I post something that makes me seem like I'm in a great place,
Right.
and I just haven't had anything. And then I kind of like, man, that's not me. I don't want to. So that's the part about comparing with other people. It can be so dangerous, is that um, we want to make sure everything's okay. But I think there's such that's kind of why I wanted to even bring it up today, is that there's so much power in being honest and being the truth, and kind of just letting it hang out there, because it's been tough, man, ever since I've been going back and forth to Wisconsin last month, or in December even. Um, my diet started really, falling apart, that's just, that thing just starts snowballing on you. So um, I don't know. I think I'm in a decent spot where I had to just step back and say, all right, you're right. I got to be patient with this. And I know I'm not the Ironman guy that I was 5 months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago, but I do know, and I recognize, and that's the good part of this too, right? Is it reminds me, it's like, man, that was a pretty good place to be. You can get up, and I talk about it all the time, how later at this point in my life, how great it has been always just to be able to just say, I think I'm going to go run like 8 miles right now. What a gift that is. And we can't take that stuff for granted.
It really shines a light, I think, on how interesting like our own reality is versus everyone else's, but yet how we all in some way, shape, or form participate in this like meaningless, vicious cycle of comparison. And and basically comparing ourselves to other people. Like there's a guy in our closed Facebook group yesterday who made this post about, he was swimming, he did 2100s at a 140 swim pace, which he commented was just average, because this person obviously sees that as an average time. Yet there are a handful of people who look at it and think, that's amazing, you're the greatest, I wish I could do that. And then another handful of thinking, yeah, that's actually below average, you're terrible. And he was saying that basically the lifeguards were like asking him if he was an Olympian. And he was so like, he was like, man, I was feeling like the champ. And I commented and I said, it's a good reminder. And of course, there was a ton of like, I think like close to 30 comments below it that were like, oh man, that's amazing, I would kill for that, and just how relative, and I just said, it's a good reminder of how relative fast and slow is. And then given that, it's also silly how silly it is for us to compare ourselves to others given that reality. Because when you look at the chain of comparison and how toxic and really horrible it is for people, the truth is that when you're comparing yourself to someone else, there's a 99.9% chance they're not even like thinking about you. They're comparing themselves to someone else. And that other person, they're doing the same thing, comparing themselves. It's not like a reciprocal support where I'm comparing myself to you because we're buddies and we're trying to lift ourselves up and motivate. It's this negative critical aspect of, I need to be better because I don't like where I am and who I am right now. Are you in Ironman shape right now? No. Are you where you were 4 or 5 months away or ago now? No. Do you need to be? No.
Hmm.
And does it take a while to get back? Absolutely. Like I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago that I was finally like really starting to kind of dial in. We did our vaguely specific or specifically vague, however you want to look at it, kind of diet and food podcast. And that I've kind of, I don't say I've let myself go, because I'm not I wouldn't say I'm, overweight by any means, but I'm definitely heavier than I've been in the past. I've been training a lot, and the last week and a half, I've started to really, I've been in the zone. I've been dialed in. I've lost some weight, but it's not the scale to me that, do I have numbers in mind? Sure. But what I've noticed is that I'm more focused on what I eat, and I've felt better, and I'm recovering better, and I enjoy being in and committed to this process of at least being, and I think this is where we get so we get so lost, is I know that I'm at least heading in the right direction. And I'm doing all the things I need to do to ultimately get to where I will be or where I feel like I need to go. I don't have to be there tomorrow because then it's over. And if you think of it that way, and how much we love, and not love, or how much people thrive being in a process and being committed and in a routine that's obviously a positive routine that's yielding, positive impacts on their life, or performance gains, or weight loss, or strength gains. Like, you love being in that. Anyone would tell you, like, the best they've ever been is when they're consistent and they just wake up and they do the work, and they wake up and they do the work, and they wake up and they do the work, and they don't analyze and they don't criticize themselves, and they don't, shame themselves for missing anything. They're just in the process. So guess what happens when the process is over? You know how hard it is to pick that process back up again and find a new one that you love? It's
Yeah.
so hard. Like, why do you think you see people over and over again after every big race they do have these, what they consider the Ironman blues, or the race blues? Because now their process is over. So you have to find a different one. That's where growth and figuring things out about yourself, that's where it lies. And so why do you, I don't understand why we have this, like, society now that it's like you want it all now and you want it to be over. Like, you're robbing yourself of the joy of what you get and what you get from this day-to-day dedication to a process, whether it be, mastering this, or diet, or training, or just trying to be consistent, or reading 30 minutes a day. Like, that's where the growth and the greatness comes from, not from it being over. It's climbing to the top of Everest that's going to get you there, that you matters the most, and then you get to the top and then you're like, okay, now it's over. Now what? Now I've got to climb it, without oxygen and faster. It's like we live in a society now that, like, we've, for some reason, we like to remove and trim away all things that take time. It's how quickly we can get done. But being done is where the misery begins for so many people, because now they have to find something else to commit to. And so there's nothing wrong with things taking time. There's nothing wrong with things being, going after things at a sustainable paced effort that's going to take days and weeks and months and years to achieve. It takes time, but within that time is when you're having the most fun. It's not that things don't matter. It's that different things are now important, and you don't drown yourself in the expectation of having to get there today, of having to get there tomorrow, of setting yourself deadlines, because the deadlines are where dreams go to die, because you cannot predict the things that life is going to throw at you. You can't predict how your body's going to react. You can't predict when you're going to get sick. You just can't do that to yourself. And how, listen, how great is it to just walk out the door one day and have a fantastic run when you didn't even know was about to happen, or a ride, or a swim, and you're swimming your fastest one yet, and you come like, man, I didn't even see that coming. How great is this? Versus the, all right, man, I got this deadline coming up. I told myself I had to, break 2 hours and a half marathon by March 15th, and I feel I can do it. I just don't know if I can do it. And then
Yeah.
let's say you do it, and then you're like, oh, whew, I'm relieved that I was able to do it. But what are the chances that you don't? Now what are you thinking? It's just, I don't understand that, um, how we wrap our brains around and rationalize putting ourselves on these kind of deadlines and time frames, that we're robbing ourselves so much.
Man, the process. It's a word that's kind of thrown glibly around
Hmm.
out there, but people don't really, I think, understand it. I mean, you see it all the time in college athletics, for example. It seems to me, and I could be overestimating this, but you've got 350 college basketball teams, 120 some football teams or whatever. And like, I feel like every one of those, not everyone, but it seems like most players these days think that sort of deserve to be in the pros after that. Or they think they just because they're on TV or they have a highlight reel from their whatever that alone is just going to be make them good enough, and if they don't make it, that's somebody else's fault. But the process for that kind of, if you want to get in the NBA, that process starts when you're about 12 years old, and hopefully you've got a good enough talent base or whatever. And I was just thinking about that because it is so easy for us, and in a weird way, the comparison, I guess, for me is that when we see all these pro triathletes and we see all these people that are sort of going to these races that are just crushing it, we don't get what's going into that, unless somebody's a supreme talent that has crazy physical abilities. Most of the people are working their ass off, and they've been doing it for a long time. And I think we'll get into these sort of, oh, it's a new year and I'm gonna, this is my year or whatever. But we don't realize that it's accumulation of, 5, 10 years or whatever sometimes to get to a point that you have in your head. And then, but to have that comparison study going on where you're thinking like I have been, I mean, I'm a prime example really, where I've been thinking podium since day one and I've had the wrong perspective on it. I think I can do it, at a big race. I have no doubt in my mind, but just haven't figured out how to solidify that process and stay with it and really build on the net yesterday instead of
Well, it's
beat
yeah, well,
yesterday. I want to
but
build on.
it's yeah, and it's kind of the same thing you were saying. Like with that mindset also comes like with benchmarks and deadlines, and I've made it like that also breeds complacency. Because you
Mhm.
see this all the time in professional sports as well. Every professional sport, like the one-hit wonder, had 1 or 2 great years, and then where'd they go? They made it, they got their paycheck, whatever happened there. They made it to the NBA, and they've been a 5-star recruit, and they get drafted high, and they're like, oh, I made it, I made it, I made it. Never to be heard from again.
Yeah.
And then you see guys that grind it out in college who, weren't on the best team. They get, the fourth, fifth, sixth round. And then even like year one, year two, they're not backups. They keep plugging away. They keep working. They keep, focusing on their craft, and they're just working hard. And then all of a sudden they're there, and then they don't go away. They continue to work. They continue to get after it because they're not worried about where they are. They're or where they are right now and that they've made it. They have arrived. They're there. They're worried about continuing to do what they've done the last 10 years, which was work every single day on just trying to be the best they can be. You don't have to do like, new year, new me. Like there's a lot of me I want to keep. There's
Yeah.
I've been working the last 6 7 years, especially to work my butt off to get to this version of me, and I don't want to get rid of a lot of it. Do I want to tweak a few things here and there? Sure, but I don't want to get rid of me. I like who I am right now. Like I said, do I got some things to tweak? Sure, but I've worked my butt off to get to where I am right now. I don't need to go through some drastic change. Do I need a couple new pair of pants and a couple new shirts? Yeah, for sure. But there's a couple things in a tweak, but that's what, again, when we have these expectations and these deadlines, we put so much behind a day or a session or a race that there's this cascade effect of emotions and where you go mentally, and then you're kind of left with, oh, okay, well, I don't like what now, instead of focusing on, and again, like you said, like, the word process is a lot of times overused, I think, but for the sake of this conversation, it is what you need to be in, or whatever you want to look at, a routine. Like a lot of people need to change their routines, or they need to, situate their life in a manner that has less stress or less takeaways or less, what I would call like, the bad, common denominators. Like you need to trim the fat. That is also being, it's process oriented, because you want things that are going to work for you and work with you, not work against you. And oftentimes we are our biggest enemy. We are our biggest obstacle, and we are the biggest reason why we don't achieve the things that we could achieve. because we're so hard on ourselves and we give up. It's not that we give up easily. It's that we make these expectations and we have these events that we have to do that have so many other factors that are going to impact what happens. And then we've already made this decision, we've already had this investment, and then we expect to get this. And then even if you get it, you're like, okay, what now? I just simply did what I thought I would do 7 months ago. Versus
Mm.
being so focused on just trying to be better, a better person, a better husband, a better spouse, a better, friend, a better teammate, a better, like, it's not just, that's the thing, is it's not just an action. Like, I can't just say, when I get home and let's say I do something really stupid and Allie's like, hey babe, that was like, you're an idiot. You need to do better at this. I'm like, oh babe, like last year I brought home roses. Remember that? Like, I got you. That doesn't work. That's not gonna fly. You have to be committed to trying to get better all the time and not being complacent in the fact that it's just going to be okay. Because that's going back to what you said earlier. It's like that's when you start taking things for granted. And I think we forget how hard we work to get to where we got or where we are or where we want to go. And then we just expect things to continue to roll that way. And then if we have things that come up in our lives that are harder or even that make things easier, like, okay, well, I got to kind of reevaluate and kind of get back to my basics, because the basics are what got me here. Not some 10-minute ab workout or some 12-minute, better way, faster way to cycling or whatever it is. It's not the quick fix. It's like the basics. Get back to the basics. Taking care of my body. I'm focused. I love what I'm doing. I'm not obsessed with what the result is today, because it's all about drops in the bucket. It's what I can dump out on race day that matters. It's not about burning matches 20 days a week. It's about going out, chopping wood, building up this gigantic pile, and then on race day, lighten that puppy. It's about that process, but it takes patience, it takes understanding, and I think the biggest fear though that it had, or the biggest reason it's a struggle for people, is because it also has that biggest fear of weight, and the fact that they hate just not, triathletes are famous. I hate not knowing. Coach, do you think I'm ready? Do you think I'm on target? Do you think I'm on pace? Like, are you exactly where I thought it would be on today, on March 7th? Like, am I there? Am I there? I'm like, I don't know, man. I was waiting. I was waiting for my analysis actually at like 8:37 a.m. and we got just a few more minutes, and then I'll do my analysis of where you're supposed to be. That's not how it works. Like, but that's why it's also so some people can't look at it that way, and that's why some people get so frustrated and beat down and are so hard on themselves, because they have to have it today, right now. I have to have an answer, because triathletes hate not knowing, or not all, most of them. And so you have to be bought into it. And the scariest part is that you have to buy into yourself. And that is, I think, the scariest part of so many, well, I mean, so many things that we do, because for a lot of us, that's the last person we trust to get things done. And if you just will focus on and believe in yourself, that get down to your own basics and stop blaming other people around you or blaming this, like, you're responsible for it. That's it. You. And you can be your biggest supporter, or you can be your biggest enemy. That's up to you.
I think it was Thoreau who said,
Your
"Be a new man in the
your best.
same old clothes."
I like that. That is me to a T.
Yeah, man.
As my wife,
It's
as you know, it's like, there he goes again in the same
be a
outfit.
new man in the same old clothes. I know. I really like that quote. It's sort of like, okay, let's don't chase stuff out there, whatever it may be. Just in that meditation thing I went to the other night, the guy was talking about, he was a former drug addict, for example, and he said that he knows that there are hundreds of times a day when he has a tendency to go one direction or the other, and he knows that he has gotten to the point where he knows that his best option is usually just to sit there and observe where he is, or to pick up something and learn something, improve himself in some way. And that's the hard part, right? It was always like he would go reach for the drugs or reach for the TV or reach for the distraction or whatever it may be. But now he just has a better handle on realizing that when he hits those crossroads, he says, man, I have an option right now to learn something or get better or, going down. And that's the little things. That's that, like you're saying, it's not is he ready. It's just that process of finding something that can make him a little bit stronger all the time. And to put all your eggs in a basket of, am I ready for this race, or what exactly am I going to do? That's always been the interesting part, we talked about it, I'm sure, but when am I ready, when people have exact times
Mm-hmm.
in their mind and then they go out and hit them, and it's like, oh, okay, is that all you had? Is that, you said it to me, you said it to me many times, but is that a limiter? I mean,
Mm.
why don't you just do all this stuff? You do this cascade of work for months and months and months and months, and then put the limiter on yourself in a way. Uh, and I mean, obviously that's not bad, and if you're pacing and things of that nature, but you wonder sometimes, it's sort of like, why don't we see sort of excitement in the unknown, or the curiosity of what could happen, and that to me is always it's always interesting, man. Just that idea that we sort of limit ourselves subconsciously or something.
Well, it's knowledge versus wisdom.
Hmm.
Some people we all know people, or see, like they're a know-it-all. They know everything. Again, this is why like we never get into like the politics and religious conversations, because there is no such thing as a discussion. It's basically two different people barking at each other and pissing and moaning over the fact that they are totally right and that is their way and that has to be that way all the time, no matter what. And you're an idiot for thinking differently. But wisdom is knowing that you don't know everything, and that
Yep.
things change, and that you're different, and life is different than what what's happened. Like, people change. Like, there are, like, you don't you well, so one of the first things my mom told me, after like this is about a month or two after I got sober, and I came over to her house, and she was like, you just don't even, you're not even look the same. I was like, what do you mean I don't look the same? She was like, there's nothing about you is the same. You're just totally different. And but the way that I was acting at that point was just totally different, so it made me look the same. But so when I use it as a comparison, or an example of how everything in life changes, is that we change. We are humans. We change. Our thoughts change. And if you are so rigid, and again, like, there are things that you obviously should believe and then hold on to for dear life, because those are things, like, don't hurt people. Like, that's generally probably a good one to keep. But the other things that we believe, like, you are going to change, and if you don't understand that, and if you fight that, then what you're doing is you're just stunting your own growth. I'm not asking you to, like, have some, like, or telling you need to have some, like, giant awakening in all areas of your life, but you should be open to hearing and seeing, and then believing that what's going on in the world, because you're a part of it. And when you look at your training, and when it comes to accepting where you are and who you are in the season of life that you're in, maybe now you can have a better understanding of why things are going the way that they are. Like, I think that's one of our biggest downfalls as athletes, is that we fail to really recognize, because we don't want to really look that hard, because then that means we got to do some introspection, and it might not feel good, it might be uncomfortable. Guess what? Let's look really hard at who we are right now and what really is the root cause. Because if you don't know that, then you are going to have a really hard time moving forward, because you won't be able to move forward with a clear vision and a clear path based on things that you truly believe and know and understand to be either limiters, to be positives, to be things you want to work on, to be challenges you want to overcome, or obstacles that you have. You can't fully do anything unless you have a deep understanding of it. You can just piddle with it. You can just dabble in it. You can just participate in it. But what you want to do is you want to own it, and you want to make it your own. But you can't do that if you don't know. And so that's one of the biggest things I would encourage anybody, if you haven't done it in a long time, is do like that deep introspection, whether you're in a great place or a bad place. Is like, am I complacent, or and do things need to change, or am I just comfortable? Like that's something that I fear immensely. I mean, I love comfort and I love routine more than this more than anybody. And but one of the very first things that my sponsor told me when I got sober was most alcoholics don't relapse when times are really, really tough, because you're focused, you're dialed in, you're going to meetings, you're doing your prayers, you're working the steps, you're doing it. You are in the zone and you are attached to it. Most of them relapse on a Tuesday or a Wednesday around lunchtime because they got complacent and because they just kind of thought that they could. And that's why you have to be wary of being complacent and being so comfortable that you'll take, you've said I think a couple times, like, you just take it for granted where you've gotten to and how hard it was to get there. But those same principles apply to getting you back. No, I hate saying that. Scratch that, erase it.
Okay.
You don't want to get back to where you were, because you're not that person anymore. You want to get to where you deserve to go. And that could look different for everybody. So stop telling yourself, I just got to get back to where you can't. Newsflash. Sorry, buzzkill. You can't get back to where you are, because that's gone. That version of you is gone. You're never going to be that person again, because you are a different individual. You're a different human. You're a different athlete. You're a different spouse. Life is different. You can never go back, nor should you want to. You should want to be the best version of who you are now, the person you're going to wake up as tomorrow. No longer like I gotta get back to where I was. No, you don't. No, you don't. Be different, because you are different.
And it's a good thing, right? I
And it's a total good thing. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Uh, I get to this, and that's where I want to, sort of get to here, is that in all these struggles, and there's a part of me that is kind of comfortable in the struggle, to be honest, and I've been definitely going through it. When I see these things in myself, I have been looking at it that way, in the sense of, you know what, I'm really in a not the greatest place right now with my training and my diet lately and what have you, and sleep and just a lot of stuff going on, right? But I do think that it's just part of figuring myself out even more. And I do believe ultimately that, I'm not saying I can be faster or whatever, but I think I can have a better approach to everything, because that's all part of it. I know over time, like, one of my things I've always known that I am is a people pleaser. That, and I think a lot of people struggle with that. And it's sort of this, you know, uh, quasi facade around yourself that wants to portray yourself as a compassionate, caring being and what have you. But ultimately, I know that that's sort of a control manipulator. Like, you want people to like you or whatever, and I have a tendency to do that. And that's sort of trying to control my own environment, rather than, sort of facing the fear of becoming, comfortable in my own skin all the time, or just growing out of that, and being more solid and consistent, and just, generally more content with who I am as I face certain situations. And this is one of them. And I mean, that's, again, it's the conversations like this with you that we happen to put on a podcast, that to me are the ways out, or the ways to figure things out. And that's what I'm doing. And uh, we all have our struggles, and for me, there's nothing better than just laying things on the table. And it's not, the end of the world. It's not a bad thing. I'm just facing things, and going through this with my dad and everything. It forced probably a crazy level of introspection that I've never approached, even though I didn't notice it necessarily. It's just something that's happening in my life. And I am, when I have a good perspective on it, it's the kind of stuff that you're very grateful for. It's sort of like realizing that the beauty in the world is the imperfection. If everything was just perfect and went along without any disruption, or everyone was always agreeing with everybody, that would kind of suck. So these challenges are the life for me.
And obsessing about getting back to where you want to go is telling yourself that you're willing to give up how far you've come. Because the amount of growth that you've had over the last few weeks, oh, I want to get back to where I was. Then are you willing to give that up? Are you willing to give up what brought you to that point? Are you willing to, give up what made you work that way? Obviously, you do anything to get your dad back, but when it comes to looking at other aspects, like I'd love to get back to where I was. Okay, well, let's do some introspection, and then you tell me how things. Because again, we all have like our better reality. Oh, that was like the best year of my life, and you look at it like day by day, you're like, yeah, that was actually probably pretty bad year. But we look back and we,
Memories.
yeah, it's how
There's,
we mold our memories and how we mold our own reality. And then you think, all right, wow, I'd love to get back to where I was. All right, let's see. Well, back then you were, you were single, you were, perfectly healthy, you had nothing else, your job was okay. Now, but you hated it, so you use triathlon as like, your lifeline to get through life's stresses. I think we so often forget that. Like what oftentimes will equate to sometimes, what we see as better results doesn't mean life was better. And you're like, oh, I was just using this, I was living the free life, and I was, man, I was single, I mean, I'm never gonna get married. Then fast forward 7 years, and you're like, man, I wish I could get back to those times that I had. I got to get back. And you're like, well, now let's see, I love my job, I got 2 kids, I'm happily married, life is so different. You want to give that up? No, no, you don't. And so it's like to obsess about getting back to so many things or being a past person. Like, yeah, are there certain attributes you should look at as a person that maybe you've given up, maybe you should refocus on? Sure, but to obsess about that and to degrade yourself or to criticize yourself and to get down on yourself or to beat yourself down is to tell yourself that you're willing to give up the growth, and you should never be willing to give up the growth.
well,
And again, thank you for listening. To our podcast.
never, no, never be willing to give up the growth.
That's a good one, man. I enjoyed that one
Yeah, me too.
because I thought our Monday one sucked, but that was all right.
You did.
Yeah, you know how it is. Like, which obviously means Monday is going to be everyone's favorite, and today people are going to be like, "Dude, that was the worst podcast you guys have ever put on." That's how it works, which is totally fine because that's part of the process. We show up, we do our best, we have these conversations, we open it up. If you've held on and you came into this podcast yearning and searching for the technical aspects of triathlon, the step by step, methods to get you in shape and faster and happier and better than ever, we got some of those. Dig back in the archives. This is podcast 345. We've got 344 that are listed out and have a really great structure and kind of a general outline that Mike does a really good job of on all of the podcasts. You can kind of pick and choose things that fit your life for when you need them most. But yeah, hasn't been a technical one, but we oftentimes get the best feedback from ones that really ask people to give deep or to dig deep and unlock, because potential is huge. And I think we forget sometimes that unlocking our physical potential or our potential in performance, like that is a global, and talking ourselves, like that is that takes addressing every ounce of who you are and what you do. And while we might not stick to the script on only focusing on swim technique and bike power and run form, we at least give it to you raw. And hopefully you can take from this podcast a couple sentences or a thought or the the pressing you to do some your own introspection to take you to that next level. It's all pieces, and triathlon is one big puzzle. That's why I love it. That's why I love coaching it, because it is so hard, and nothing is ever the same, and you always got to keep working at it. So keep working at it. Keep listening. We'll probably have another technical one, but who knows? We got run camp starting tomorrow, Thursday through Sunday. Pumped for that. Pumped to hang out with a lot of people and get re-energized and have some good time with some just really awesome people. If you haven't been, swing on by our new website, C26Triathlon.com. Covers all things. We do training, coaching, camps, and most importantly, it does an awesome job of showcasing our athletes who are the core of everything that we do and what we strive to accomplish. If you want to reach out to Mike, you know where he is, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me, C26coach@gmail.com.
Yeah, man. And this, now every time I say that,
I know,
we just
dude.
got to do a T-shirt. Yeah,
I
man.
know, yeah, man. And again, on the
But
back,
why?
and again.
When you go to C26 Triathlon, check out the coaching page and look up our good friend and coach, Jessica Jacobs. Check her out. She's been on board with us for a few months now.
Yeah,
Months.
she is done. She is rocking it. So yeah, if you're interested in coaching, look that up. She's doing an awesome job. Has already taken on quite a few athletes, and I think she has a couple spots open at the moment. So check it out, peruse it, and if you have any questions, pop her an email, and we can connect you as always.
All right. With that said, looking forward to run camp here. Get me out of my shell a little bit and around a bunch of cool people. I think it's going to be awesome, as usual.
It's like one big awkward con.
Awkward con. All right, buddy. Well, appreciate the talk, and thank you everybody for listening. It's been awesome as usual, and we'll be back with you Monday.
Sounds good, dude.
See you.